It's The Kim Monson Show, analyzing the most important stories.
The socialization of transportation, education, energy, housing, and water, what it means is that government controls it through rules and regulations.
The latest in politics and world affairs.
Under this guise of bipartisanship and nonpartisanship, it's actually tapping down the truth.
Today's current opinions and ideas.
On an equal field in the battle of ideas, mistruths and misconceptions is getting us into a world of hurt.
Is it freedom or is it force? Let's have a conversation.
Hey, let's have a conversation, and welcome to the Kim Monson Show, hour number 2. Thank you so much for joining us. You're each treasured, you're valued, you have purpose. Today, strive for excellence, take care of your heart, your soul, your mind, and your body. My friends, we were made for this moment in history. Thank you to the team, producer Joe, Luke, Rachel, Nicole, Zach, Echo, Charlie, all the people here at Crawford Broadcasting. Happy Monday, producer Joe.
Happy Monday, Kim.
And we're off to the races.
Oh, another day.
In studio with me, Brad Beck is able to stay in studio, and that's great to have you. And this piece that we will publish this weekend, The Highest Use of the Good by Bradley Beck. Great piece and important discussion on Israel and what's happening, Hamas. As we look at these protests on these college campuses, it is very reminiscent of both the Summer of Love of 2020, where we had businesses and economies destroyed, and it reminds me of Kristallnacht, 1938 in Nazi Germany.
We're at an inflection point.
We are.
In this country, a tipping point, if you will. And I think people need to stand up and not be afraid and speak their voice and really be a beacon of light when there's so much darkness around us. And I think it's not just Israel, it's around the world. But Israel right now is the place where the light is shining. And I'm supporting and using my voice where I can to say, we need to support our allies, and Israel's an ally.
And so important piece, and we'll roll that out this weekend. In studio also is Kurt Gerwitz, Professor Kurt Gerwitz. It's great to have you here.
It's great to be here, Kim, always.
And, you and I met through Liberty Toastmasters.
Yes, and Brad here in studio with us was my mentor for a while. He brought me into he's the reason I joined Liberty Toastmasters.
Well, he's a co-founder of Liberty Toastmasters, and I am a Toastmaster this weekend for Denver, the Denver group, and that will meet at 10 o'clock down at the Independence Institute. We'd love to have guests. I'd love to have you join us, and I've not been getting attendance awards this year.
You and me both.
It's been so busy. I've actually been out speaking. I've been doing speaking gigs, but I'm really excited to be Toastmaster. We'd love to have you join us. It'll be a lot of fun.
I wish I was going to be there because I love hearing you lead the group. It's fabulous to see people go from their fear and really get the opportunity to improve their public speaking and their listening skills. I think Kirk will tell you that people come for speaking, but they leave better listeners as well.
Yeah, and they do progress. I've also have not won any attendance awards, and but I'm visiting another Toastmaster. I'm a guest over at another Toastmasters by my house. There's lots of Toastmasters. You can just you can shop them. You can pick ones by your house or by location. But Liberty is my home.
Oh my gosh, and so we'd love to have you join us. You can get more. So Liberty Toastmasters Denver meets the first and third Saturdays of each month at the Independence Institute. And then Liberty North meets in Longmont the second and fourth Saturdays of each month. And that group is really rocking and rolling as well.
They're both doing great. They're both growing. The North group, it's interesting, ever since COVID, or as I like to say, Wuhan, less people want to go downtown. But as I remind people, early in the morning, the usual suspects aren't on the sidewalks as much. So It's safe. It's at the Independence Institute. Lots of great parking and a great group of people in a wonderful venue.
Mm-hmm. And so we'd love to have them join us. And you can get more information by going to libertytoastmasters.org, I think that it is, or liberty.toastmasters.org, I think it.
Google it.
Just put
it shows up in the search.
It'll show up. Okay, let's get over here to our word of the day. And I chose this word because this was in your essay, and it was pogrom, or pogrom. It could be either, it looks like. And it is it's a noun, an organized, often officially encouraged massacre or persecution of a minority group, especially one conducted against Jews, a riot aimed at persecution or massacre of a particular ethnic or religious group. So the Kristallnacht, that was a pogrom, pogrom or a pogrom, right?
Yeah, well, it really came out in Eastern Europe, Russia, Ukraine, where the Cossacks would go in and wipe out a village of Jews because they had to make a demonstration that they were the leaders of that nation at the time. And of course, there's always been scapegoats of Jews being the problem of whatever the nation isn't doing correctly, and Jews were always part of that unfortunate end of that situation.
Scapegoat on all that. And I want to just very quickly address this, leaders. And at our founding, our founders didn't really want leaders. They wanted the rights of the individual. And so for us to be looking towards a leader to save us, the leader should be what's in us, instead of that leader that we're looking as a savior. As a Christian, Christ is our savior. I look to him as my savior, but I don't look to these leaders to be leading my life. And I think that's what the founders thought as well, Brad.
Well, they studied the ancients, they studied the republics of nations in the world at the time, and understood that if it was up to the individual, it was up to citizens to make the difference. It wasn't up to government. I think Grover Cleveland once said, the people support the government should not support the people. Mm-hmm. It is not up to the government to give us something. It is to make it a level playing field, protect our equal natural rights, and leave us alone. They're there to defend the country. They are there to adjudicate our differences through courts. And that's pretty much it at a federal level. The local level, where you can see your representative in the supermarket, have a discussion, try to move the needle in the positive way, that's where it should happen at the local level, either your city or your state government, but not through the federal government.
Right. And so everything's upside down right now. And I've been giving a number of speeches, and one of the reasons I haven't been at Liberty Toastmasters as often as I'd like is because I have been out there speaking. And Kurt, what I have said is that I really believe that we are in our third founding of our country. There was certainly the Revolutionary War and then the Civil War, but I really think that we are in the third founding of our country on whether or not we will continue this American idea of the sanctity of the individual liberty, limited government, and it's pretty interesting out there right now, Kurt.
Yeah, we were talking about the progression of speaking, and I've been visiting the Rotary clubs. I've been making the circuit of
Awesome.
Rotary clubs, and I think of Brad a lot because he's done some essays or at least speeches on the subject of that is where charity should happen, is in these competitive local nonprofits rather than from the federal government. I'm also watching the Hulu show on FDR, and so I'm getting a good grip of the history of how and why the federal government just really completely changed its mandate from what our founding fathers put on paper into. He was really trying to save democracy. That was the belief, was save capitalism, save democracy. You have to believe in it so much. And when you're up against Hitler and you're up against Stalin and their ideologies, because everybody was reacting to that, the Great Recession, the Great Recession. It was in our lives, mm-hmm. The Great Depression. That the argument there was that these local charities, they didn't have money, so the power of the government is they could just print money, as it turns out.
And now look where we are.
Right, without consequence for the past, 10-15 years, and now the consequences have started to show up.
Yeah, and that's for sure. So we'll talk about all that. Brad Beck is in studio. Kurt Gerwis is in studio. Our quote for the day, I went to Golda Meir because of the piece that you've written. Golda Meir was born in 1898. She died in 1978. She was an Israeli politician who served as the fourth prime minister of Israel from 1969 to 74. And she said this: there will be peace in the Middle East only when the Arabs love their children more than they hate Israel. Powerful, Brad.
Yeah, very much so. And Golda Meir being, I think, either the first or second female prime minister in the world. And, excuse me, she did more to put Israel on a right path than people realize. And she was a strong individual. She lived here in Denver. I think she was born in Wisconsin. Her family moved out here. She lived on the west side of Denver. And it's amazing that people don't even know that here in our city of, so much of the history that's here.
Yeah, we need to be teaching our kids history, all of our history, but we need to be teaching our kids history. And we have these important discussions because of my sponsors.
And I'm talking with Roger Mangan with the Roger Mangan State Farm Insurance team. And Roger, I wanted to ask you about debris removal. We had this beautiful, heavy snow, within the last month or so. But my gosh, there were branches everywhere. And I still see some branches down. What should people know about debris removal?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. We had that hurricane in Highlands Ranch about 2 years ago, and we had a lot of trees that were uprooted. And a tree has an immense amount of value on a piece of property because it just beautifies the property. So if you have a beautiful tree and it gets torn down either by the wind or a small hurricane or a tornado, which doesn't happen frequently in Colorado, but we do get our share of wind, and the tree falls in the yard, doesn't hit any building, doesn't hit a fence, then there's no coverage for a tree, okay? If the tree hits the house and damages the house, they'll pay up to, and State Farm will pay up to $1,000 to remove the tree and cut it up and get it off the property and pay for the damage to the house as well. So you do have coverage for it, but it's very limited. Debris removal. In fact, during that tornado, I went to some of my insured's house and looked around. And this one insured of mine was very lucky. He had 2 trees fall down. Neither of them hit the house. He was unlucky in that State Farm wouldn't pay to remove them because he didn't hit anything. So that is probably the nuts and bolts of debris removal.
So if it doesn't hit the house, then it would be up to the homeowner to just go ahead and pay and get that all taken care of.
Yeah, and if the tree falls and blocks a driveway or some kind of a ramp, that would be considered coverage as well, because you have no access to your home for food or emergencies. So not just hitting the house, but blocking a driveway. And it's a sad story to have to tell people, I'm sorry you have no coverage. Did it hit the house? Well, no, it didn't hit the house, but it was close. Well, I'm sorry, there's no coverage. But if it hits the house and it has to be removed, we'll pay up to $1,000 total. So if 3 trees hit the house, it's still $1,000 for all 3 trees, okay?
So people need to probably think about that regarding taking care of their shrubs and trees and all that. Yes?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. And if people would like to set up a complimentary appointment with you and your team, what's that best phone number?
Give us a call at 303-795-8855. We'd be more than happy to walk you through whatever questions you might have.
Again, that's the Roger Mangan State Farm Insurance Team, 303-795-8855. Like a good neighbor, the Roger Mangan team is there.
With the limited number of homes in the Colorado Front Range market, Karen Levine can help you achieve your home buying or selling vision. Karen has the right connections, technology, and strategies to help you buy or sell your home or to purchase a new build. Whether you're feeling overwhelmed or want someone to take the wheel, or you just need a second opinion, you can rest assured the RE/MAX Realtor, Karen Levine, is the right agent for you. Call Karen Levine at 303-877-7516. Karen is the trusted professional who strives for excellence. That number is 303-877-7516.
You'd like to get in touch with one of the sponsors of the Kim Monson Show, but you can't remember their phone contact or website information. Find a full list of advertising partners on Kim's website, kimmonson.com. That's Kim, MONSON.com.
And welcome back to the Kim Monson Show. Be sure and check out our website. That is Kim Monson, MONSON.com. Sign up for our weekly email newsletter, and you can email me at kim@kimmonson.com as well. Thank you to all of you who support us. We are an independent voice, and we search for truth and clarity by looking at these issues through the lens of freedom versus force, force versus freedom. If something's a good idea, you should not have to force people to do it. And thank you to the Harris family for their gold sponsorship of the show. And thank you to the National Shooting Sports Foundation for their gold sponsorship of the show as well. And my friends, even though this Colorado State Legislature is out of session now, thank goodness, that does not mean that we rest easy on this. This continued assault upon the right of law-abiding citizens to keep and bear firearms to protect ourselves against bad actors must continue on. And so we will continue to talk with the National Shooting Sports Foundation about that. And again, I so appreciate the National Shooting Sports Foundation for their gold sponsorship of the show. Brad Beck is in studio with me. We will be rolling out his essay, The Highest Use of the Good, this weekend. And it's great to have you. Thanks for staying.
It's always great to be here, and great to be with Kurt. Haven't seen him in a while, so good to see you, Kurt.
Good to see you too, Brad.
Professor Kurt Gerwitz is in studio as well. And we had talked about, I had a listener that corrected my pronunciation on it's Palizi. They said, hi, Kim, I've lived in Brighton, the Brighton area for years, and I always heard the name pronounced with a long I and a long E. So Palizi Farms. So I'll be headed up to that regarding eminent domain, trying to take their land today. And amazing. There will be a judge that will make this decision today if this metro district can take immediate possession of these people's land. I mean, it's remarkable, Brad.
The idea of eminent domain always made my skin crawl, even though it's in our documents of America to build roads and to take for public good. But they could make the case for almost taking a neighborhood out, and they have over the years for freeways and dividing communities and ruining lives. So I'm not a big fan of eminent domain, even for a good purpose.
And Kurt Gerwitz, I know this might seem a little bit tin hat-ish on my part, but let's just think about this. Let's say that you have a house that you raise the kids in. The kids have left. You have extra bedrooms. We have all these illegal immigrants here. What about eminent domain to use those bedrooms to house illegal immigrants? That's why we need to care about these issues. Brad, do you want to jump in or first?
No, I'll let Kurt.
Well, you've heard me say I don't think people should be able to graduate high school or allowed to vote in the United States if you can't explain supply and demand that they set prices. And so when people are like, oh, the housing is so expensive, it's like, I know what sets prices. And it's a lack of supply of houses. And if you ask the house builders, if you ask landlords, why do we have a lack of supply? They will tell you it's regulations. And
there you have it.
Right. And the government is so good at the narrative of we've got to solve a problem that they had created.
Mm-hmm. And that problem, you're exactly right, Brad.
Well, I'm amazed that the government even would think that you need to house illegal aliens into somebody's home by force. Mm-hmm. So let's go back and think about, does any other country let illegal people into their nation? No. But do we love immigrants? Absolutely. We're all immigrants. We want more people to come here and pursue their happiness, but not through force and not through a porous border. Right. We don't know half the people that are here, and the Chinese and the Iranians and the Venezuelans and God knows who coming into our country.
And we had talked about allies protecting their borders. We hadn't really talked about protecting our border. I mean, that is one of the things that is in our founding documents, in the Constitution, and that is to protect our nation from foreign and domestic adversaries, and that's not occurring. So, okay, let's get over here, Kurt Gerwitz. I don't want to let the day go without talking about Anderson Reports.
Well, thank you, Kim. Yes, it's the best finance and investments class in all of Colorado. It's over at Regis University. It's in the MBA program. You can actually, we do let in undergrads, but they have to be very special. They have to apply. They have to be juniors or seniors in the finance and accounting program. And we do a deep dive on a publicly traded company that's headquartered in Colorado. So we know the big boys are Crocs and my wife works for Ball Corp. There are 13 Wall Street analyst banks covering Ball Corp, and so there's 13 institutions that are like, oh, is this a good stock? Is this a good company? Is it a good investment? And the most covered company in the United States, or in the world, is Apple. They've got 29 analysts covering them. We've covered 5 companies. 2 of the 5 have had 0 Wall Street analysts covering them, which means we are it. We are Wall Street right here in your backyard in Denver. We were the only ones covering PCYO, Pure Cycle Water, which has a great. Each one of these companies has an amazing story, but PCYO is a textbook case of vertical integration. They are a water utility, publicly traded water utility, and so they compete with Denver Water. If you can, that's not usually not a good business to compete with the government like that, but they make it work. They've been investing. They're sitting on billions of dollars worth of water rights, and in order to have more customers, they bought 900 acres east of Denver, and they're developing it. So now they're making more money as a land developer than they were as a water utility. And they have a great hedge on interest rates. If interest rates are up, then usually housing prices are down, although we're living in a world where they're both up, which is crazy. But in general...
Because of supply and demand.
Because of supply and demand, yes. And so when interest rates are up, they can rent the houses. And when interest rates are down and then houses pricing goes up, then they can sell the houses. So they've got this great hedge. Again, this is a company that Wall Street's not covering. Only us at Anderson Reports are looking at this, and this semester we're about to release our 5th report, and this one is on Rocky Mountain Chocolate Factory. And so you don't have to just buy the chocolate; you can also buy the company. And it'll
be better for your waist and hips if you just buy the company, right?
Better for your wallet, perhaps. Well, depending on which direction it goes. There is risk here. This is not financial advice. It's not legal advice. It's not really even good personal advice, to be honest. They're trading at $3.50, so it's down. It's a turnaround play. They're a nano cap. So there's small cap, mid cap, large cap. Small cap is generally under $2 billion in market cap. It just means generally a small company that's publicly traded, but a nano cap, because they're 25 million in market cap. It's a very small company, and they're headquartered in Durango, Colorado, which I thought would be easy to get to, but as it turns out, it's really far away because these mountains are hard to drive around. We ended up flying. We flew in for the day.
How many of you?
So I only had 2 students this semester. I had 1 undergrad and 1 grad student. They were great students, and they did, and partially perhaps on my enthusiasm about finally getting the Willy Wonka experience of touring the chocolate factory. They got 53,000 square foot chocolate factory in the middle of nowhere. Durango's a beautiful place.
Yeah,
though.
it is. And so you flew in and you met with the management and did a report.
Got a tour and met with the CFO. And we sit with the CFO and we say, look, you guys, you're telling us there's going to be a turnaround. Well, what about this? How do you compete with See's Candies is one of the more popular competitors, and they're owned by Warren Buffett. And, how do you compete with Mars Bar or the big boys and Hershey's? And because we do care about the world, and we are a Jesuit school, so we really care about Catholics have a preferential option for the poor, and so we do concern ourselves with there's slavery in the supply chain of chocolate. It's kind of a precarious situation, and it's going to get problems get solved through business, so that's where it'll get solved. But we put that into the ESG section. And it's just informational purposes, so that our readers, our investors, can see outside of just measuring. And I do think the best way to measure value is with the U.S. dollar, but we can also have the narratives that are surrounded as well.
ESG. You wanted to get me.
I wanted to get you going on
that one. Yeah. No, I don't think that we need to be having ESG scores for corporations. This is a way that the woke agenda can come in and start to try to control different agendas. And that reminds me, speaking of that, one of our listeners had texted me this weekend that, speaking of ESG, Target during Pride Month last year, they had all this very prevalent trans products, and apparently it must have hit their bottom line because they're not going to be quite so displaying that like they were. So supply and demand can actually solve many of these problems. ESG, I really think, comes down to coercion and force. Kurt Gerwitz. Yeah,
I see your point. And there are, whenever somebody starts telling narratives outside of the value of the U.S. dollar, like what's important to us that's not just measured in dollars, you should be questioning. If you're not cynical, then you should not be working in investments, I would say. Or if you're not skeptical, then you're just not going to have, you shouldn't be in business. You won't have success. However, I think it belongs in the conversation. I don't think it belongs in a metric. I think investors should be able to vote. This is the whole game here, is that we should be voting with our dollars. That's where you get to the highest and best use of capital is decided by people.
Okay, I got to make a note here so that I don't forget regarding oil and gas and divestiture. Do you want to make a comment, Brad, before?
The only thing I would say is that I was on a board of directors in the craft industry, and they started going down the path and did go through the path of ESG, and I was the only dissenting vote. I made sure my vote was cast and written in the minutes because I was a secretary at the time. That organization is no longer viable. It's gone. And the reason it's gone is because they missed the focus. It was about business. It was about making a profit. It was about the industry moving forward based on the fact that there's a return on your investment. And when there's a metric in the mix that is not on merit, to me, it loses focus for what the organizational point is about why they exist. And so I'm out of any investment that is ESG oriented. I pulled my money out of that when I learned about it a long time ago.
Well, and I just want to clarify profit. What that is basically it is a profit occurs when there is value traded for value. And so when you have this coercion through ESG, it's not creating any value. People, Coca-Cola, hey, if I want to buy a soft drink, I want to buy Coca-Cola. I don't want to be preached to about some woke agenda over here. And I think people are waking up to that. So we're going to leave all that. We're going to continue this discussion. It's fascinating. But speaking of value for value, Jansen Photography, and Mary Jansen was on the other day. Jansen Photography, Glenn and Mary are true entrepreneurs. They have a beautiful a property out in Lakewood. It's an old farmstead, and spring is springing. And Mary and I talked about don't procrastinate because you never know what life is going to hand you. And so make that appointment now for a photograph of your family or of the children or your senior student. And they're running a special right now, Mother's Day special through Father's Day. And you can get more information about that by going to jansenphotography.com. That's JANSSEN photography.com. And we have these important discussions because of our sponsors like Lavaca Meat Company.
Lavaca Meat Company takes great pride in selling only the best. Lavaca Meat Company is a third-generation family-owned business with its roots in eastern Colorado. Lavaca means the cow in Spanish. As our name implies, we only sell beef. No poultry, pork, bison, or game. Just premium quality, aged, mouth-watering beef. Our store is located at the corner of Main and Nevada in the historic Coors Building in downtown Littleton. For a steakhouse experience at home, visit us in person or shop online at lavacameat.com. Lavaca Meat Company, only the best. Again, that's lavacameat.com.
If you are 62 or older, a reverse mortgage could be a great tool regarding retirement and estate planning. It is essential to understand the process. Lauren Levy with Polygon Financial Group has nearly 20 years in the mortgage industry and has the experience to answer your questions. Lauren understands that each financial transaction is personal. If you'd like to explore your options on a reverse mortgage, remodel your home, buy a rental property, or move, Call Lauren Levy at 303-880-8881. Licensed in 49 states, Kim Monson highly recommends Lauren Levy for all your mortgage needs. Call Lauren at 303-880-8881.
Focused and wise marketing is essential for your success, especially during tough economic times. If you love The Kim Monson Show, strive for excellence, and understand the importance of engaging in the battle of ideas that is raging in America, then talk with Kim about partnership, sponsorship opportunities. Email Kim at kimmonson.com. Kim focuses on creating relationships with individuals and businesses that are tops in their fields. So they are the trusted experts listeners turn to when looking for products or services. Kim personally endorses each of her sponsors. Again, reach out to Kim at kimmonson.com.
Welcome back to the Kim Monson Show. Be sure and check out our website. That is Kim Monson, MONSON.com. Sign up for a weekly email newsletter. You can email me at kim@kimmonson.com as well. Thank you to all of you who support us. We're an independent voice, and we search for truth and clarity by looking at these issues through the lens of freedom versus force, force versus freedom. If something's a good idea, you shouldn't have to force people to do it. I will be in Pueblo on Wednesday and Thursday at the Center for American Values, which is located right on the Riverwalk. And they're doing two different On Values presentations. On Wednesday, Jim Owen will be presenting regarding just a real positive message. He's written a book on cowboy ethics, and we need it now more than ever. And he'll be presenting in honor of First Responder Day. And then on Thursday, there will be a presentation by Karen Patterson, who is the author of a book that she it's on Gabriel Martin's father, who was and Gabriel will be there as well, who was a Tuskegee Airman and known as the Red Tails. And in World War II, our bombers, early in World War II, the fighters didn't have enough fuel range to accompany them all the way to their targets. We lost 88,000 airmen during World War II. And then the Red Tails, the Tuskegee Airmen, came in, and many of the bombers would request their cover because they worked so hard at excellence and not mediocrity, Brad Beck.
Well, merit says it all.
It does.
And when people are trying to prove that they're as good as anybody else, their excellence comes up. Think of the Buffalo Soldiers during the Civil War and afterwards, and just trying to prove that they're equal citizens.
Mm-hmm. And in doing so, they excelled. Yeah. So, okay, Kurt Gerwitz, Professor Kurt Gerwitz. Anderson Reports, first of all, how can people find that?
You can Google Anderson Reports and put in Regis into that search. It'll come up. Also, so I can be found as a professional public speaker, or as a fractional CFO. I can help you. I can transform your business through financial thinking, and I promise we will not get caught up in a conversation around ESG because it is quite a distraction, and that's how I present it, really. But at kurtgerwitz.com. It's my new website. Okay. I'm easily found on the interwebs with a search.
Okay, and it's Kurt with a K.
K-U-R-T, and then Gerwitz is spelled like Germany, and then Witz.
Okay. And through ESG, there's been this pressure to divest that any companies that are investing in all of the things that are happening in Israel, instead of a company deciding, hey, this makes sense, what they're doing, and yes, we will, invest in that. That's one of the things that you see these protesters. What they're trying to do is they're trying to starve them from capital, from having capital to grow and create new businesses. But Kurt, I also saw that as I was watching the legislation here in Colorado, is I saw legislation that is trying to starve our oil and gas industry. And in doing so, it then starves capital coming into our oil and gas industry, which provides reliable, efficient, affordable, and abundant energy. And so this has been another strategy by radical activists, is to try to starve entities that they don't like under the guise of ESG or whatever, to starve them of capital.
Yeah, there's certainly a distortion of free market capitalism here. I think this actually fits into the narrative of government, addressing a problem that it created. And I know you and I disagree on this, but oil and gas has been subsidized, and it has been prioritized by our governments in their own behavior.
Many people say that. How has it been subsidized?
One of these days I'm going to come in here with all the research that I need to do to answer your good question there, Kim. There's tax break. The new way that government runs things, controls things. And look, when I was a high school teacher, you wanted the dress code or your homework policy, it had to be as strict as possible so that it was written down as strict, and then you could be lenient on it. And this is what our government does to control us. They're like super high taxes, and then we'll give you credits or we'll give you a tax break. And then that's the form of control that it applies. Well,
you and I can agree that we actually should have very low taxes and let people compete. But instead, they are using it as control.
You should look at this story of this company in Kansas City, where there's a border between Kansas and Missouri right there. And this one company, you can just bounce back and forth twice a year between which state you're in, and you collect these economic incentives to move into that state. They produce nothing of value, or they did something to bring in revenue that made them viable, but they made more off of letting governments compete to feed them capital.
To that point, and that is that is not the proper role of government. We have all these economic development offices, local, county, state. And Brad, I like the idea of economic development. My gosh, that sounds good. But what I realized is just what you mentioned, Kurt Gerwitz. It's bureaucrats, those PBIs, politicians, bureaucrats, and interested parties, that they are giving some businesses special deals and picking winners and losers.
When I hear people in governments in particular say, if we don't have our hand out, if we don't participate in the ask, then we lose out. And I say that is not your job to ask, nor is it government's to dole out. It is your responsibility to protect rights, and that's it. Let the free market either go up or come down based on competition. And the less government regulation and the less interference you have in the process by government, people win. At the end of the day, people win. Now, does that mean, as Kurt mentioned, that there aren't incentives that people react to? And I don't blame companies for playing that game, because that's the game that has been handed to us. But it takes an individual to say, we're not going to participate. And if more people are moral and ethical and think about what happens, then you don't have what happens, especially in Washington, where you have lobbyists going there that, companies like Apple and Google never had to go to until they were forced to, because they had to protect their interests.
So with that, Kurt, okay, so Brad, you and I next month is going to go the usurpations, right? And the declaration. So Kurt, next month we're going to talk about subsidies to the oil and gas business. We know very well that the wind and solar industry is getting tremendous subsidies, and wind and solar is not reliable. It's not efficient. It's not affordable. One might say it's abundant, but yet at nighttime it's not abundant. Wind doesn't blow. So it doesn't hit any of those things, but yet oil and gas is reliable, efficient, affordable, and abundant. And it allows us to power our lives. It gives us freedom and mobility, all those things. And so I know that wind and solar is highly subsidized, but every time I ask people on the subsidies for oil and gas, I don't get I don't get the definitive answer. So that's what we're going to try to get to.
I will come prepared for you, Kim.
Sounds good. Before we go to break, let's finish up Anderson Reports. I think this is so creative what you are doing with your students, and I really think it's important work that you're doing.
Yeah, a Wall Street analyst serves as a journalist. We seek the truth. I talk about this. I require my students to watch this documentary on Hulu, and it's called The China Hustle, and it's the story of an investment advisor who didn't feel good about how poorly he was able to protect his clients during the great financial crisis that we lost all this money because of the because of government intervention. There was a giant bubble in the housing market, and we all felt that correction, in 2008. And so then he was like, well, how do we help our clients? And he kept getting fed the line, we should invest in China. And he said, well, this time I'm going to investigate like a good analyst does. And he just found these holes in the narrative of we shouldn't be investing in China. Spoiler alert, investing in China is risky, probably not a good idea. And it's illegal to tell the truth in these communist countries. And so there's a
getting like that here.
It's a real risk. And truth is really, really important. And conversations and conflict create the path to truth. There's a story of an analyst operating illegally in China, puts a camera outside of a factory and says, according to your numbers on what you're selling, there should be like 15 trucks a day going through this factory. He goes, I'm counting them. There's less than 2. And that's the work of a journalist. Mm-hmm. That's the work of an analyst. That's what we do. And so, we have this story. Our first company we ever covered, Farmland Partners, they own 600,000 acres of farmland. And it's one of 2 publicly traded REITs in the United States that does farmland, and they're a little bit, so it's really hard to compare to another company. The other REIT is covering, has bigger, they have the blueberry plants. It takes 2 or 3 years for them to grow up, or maybe I'm getting the fruit wrong, but an orchard takes a few year investment to have a tree versus a cash crop where you can get potatoes once a year, you can get corn once a year. And so our company, FPI, they were hit by a short attack. So someone in the markets anonymously went on to Seeking Alpha and said, this company is self-dealing and they're fraudulent and you should short their stock. And he was backed by a hedge fund. And all that came out in court because Farmland Partners spent $1 million to countersue. They survived it. It was quite a dramatic story. Mm-hmm. We, here in Denver at Regis University, we scooped the Wall Street Journal picked that story up a year and a half after we told that story. Yeah.
Okay. Again, Anderson Reports. Where can people find it? Anderson
Reports. I would say Google it. Anderson Reports at Regis at Anderson College of Computing and Business.
Well done, Kurt Gerwitz, and Kurt's in studio. Kurt Gerwitz and Brad Beck, and we have these discussions because we have great sponsors like John Boson.
All of Kim's sponsors are an inclusive partnership with Kim and are not affiliated with or in partnership with KLZ or Crawford Broadcasting. If you would like to support the work of the Kim Monson Show and grow your business, contact Kim at her website, kimmonson.com. That's Kim Monson, MONSON.com.
Franktown Firearms is fully stocked and ready for you to come shoot. Franktown Firearms is a family-friendly shooting range and gun store, constantly bringing in new inventory of ammunition, firearms, and accessories that you need. Come down to shop or just shoot on their spacious, well-ventilated 10-lane, 30-yard range with staff who will help you become as proficient a shooter as you can be. You'll have a blast with their multi-level training courses that also include tactical shooting while walking, moving, and shooting from behind cover. This isn't your average range, and it's not your average inventory. If Franktown doesn't have it, they'll help you track it down. And for a limited time, KLZ listeners enjoy an exclusive offer. Tell them you heard this spot on KLZ, and they'll give you a free gun rental, Class 3 weapons not included, when you rent a lane. And they'll give you your first membership month for free. So stop in and let them know KLZ sent you. Franktown Firearms, where friends are made.
Boson Law fights for clients who've been injured or family members who have lost a loved one due to the careless, reckless, or wrongful conduct of others. Whether injured in a car accident, suffered an injury due to a product or bad pharmaceutical drug, or need help fighting for medical care and benefits following an accident at work, don't go it alone and uninformed. Boson Law is the law firm you need in your corner. Time is of the essence with any personal injury claim. Call 303-999-9999 to schedule your complimentary consultation. That number again is 303-999-9999. Call now.
Back back to the Kim Monson Show. Check out the website, kimmonson.com. Text line 720-605-0647. Brad Beck is in studio with me, co-founder of Liberty Toastmasters. Great to have you here.
Always a privilege and a pleasure to be here.
And I thank you for guest hosting for me as well.
Anytime. I love doing it. I love radio. I have a face for radio, so that's why I love it.
And we'll roll out your piece, The Highest Use of the Good, this weekend in the newsletter. So great to have you here. Kurt Gerwitz, it's great to have you as well. Professor at Regis University, and students are the authors of the Anderson Reports at Anderson College of Business. Is that right?
College of Computing and Business.
Okay, there we go. And on the line with me is Paula Sarles, a dear friend, and she is the president of the USMC Memorial Foundation. They've got this big golf tournament coming up on Thursday. Paula Sarles, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Kim. How are you doing?
Doing well. I know you're working diligently. You're working with the NFL Alumni Association for this event on Thursday. And, hey, I didn't look at the weather. What's the weather supposed to be?
Well, it's supposed to be 70 degrees with late afternoon showers. So we'll be done by the time it rains. It's going to be a gorgeous day.
Okay. So give us an update. What's happening?
Well, since I talked to you last, we got a Mercedes-Benz for our hole-in-one challenge. It's from Mercedes-Benz of Denver, an AMG SL43 valued at $100,000.
So the first person,
that's a cool thing.
The first person that makes a hole-in-one gets that then, huh?
That's right. And we've got lots of other games to play that are normal for tournaments, and it's going to be so much fun. And then we also have a silent auction online that's up since Friday, too. So anybody can play in that silent auction if there's something you'd be interested in. Excuse me, you can bid online, so we hope people will take a look at that.
Okay. And where can people get all this information, Paula Sarles?
You can go to our website, USMC Memorial Foundation, and just scroll down a little bit and you see the golf tournament links. And we have 3 foursomes that are open. We're all full except for 3 foursomes. So, and you can register as an individual, too, if you'd like to play. And tomorrow is the deadline to register to play. So
okay,
if you're interested, get your registration in. Once people found out about the Mercedes-Benz, they're like, I'm going to play.
Well, absolutely. And this will be out at the Ridge in Castle Pines North.
Right. And Ryan Harris will be there, Wade Manning, Linton Thomas, and some other players. And our sponsors are Old Town Dental and Cooper's Troopers and EarthX. I can't remember the rest of them.
Okay, well...
Merrick and Howell and our architects and them.
Okay. Well, people can get more information by going to usmcmemorialfoundation.org. That's usmcmemorialfoundation.org. And Paula, we'll talk with you again tomorrow.
Okay, take care.
Have a great day. Okay, Kurt Gerwitz is in studio. Brad Beck. Let's get to some of our messages here. This is from one of our listeners that said, I have been to Israel 8 times and I have many friends there. I'm in complete agreement with Mr. Beck's comments this morning. My friends want to be left alone to live their lives in peace. Good program. There you go, Brad.
Well, I thank the caller or the text person to agree with me that we have to support our allies, but people need to go to Israel and see what's actually going on the ground. Their minds will be changed. It's the only nation in that part of the world that honors the individual.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and moving on, we're all over the place here with text messages regarding Palisi Farm. This listener said to have this happening in Brighton with this farm should be a huge wake-up call to all of us. And this person said they grew up on the Western Slope, thought it was conservative, but that's completely changed. And a lot's happening in our rural counties, including Weld. And we'll talk with Trent Luce about something happening in Weld County. I haven't gotten my brain totally around that, but it looks like it might be a land grab by commissioners, and most of them are Republicans. So we need to work to reclaim these principles with Republicans and Democrats. Brad Beck.
I think we always have to ask ourselves, what's the proper role of government? And if somebody pays, who benefits, who decides, and what's fair is a very simple lens to look at. And when you take from others and you don't produce anything, that's not fair. And so I would challenge anybody in government, local, state, federal, what is your proper role? When people say I'm running for office and I ask them why, and they say, well, I want to help. Well, I don't need help. Leave me alone. Protect my rights. Get out of the way.
Right. Okay, Kurt Gerwitz from our listeners, one of the said, no matter who, all subsidies are bad. I agree. And public-private partnerships are bad. And then they said the Federal Reserve Bank being the largest and the worst. What would you say on that one, Kurt Gerwitz?
I'm watching this FDR documentary, and there were runs on banks, and it was, the reason he felt so empowered to expand the role of government and to win World War II is the thing he did, was because he had an early success in restoring faith in the banking system by using the collective power of and the size of the federal government to restore faith in the banks. He got people to stop pulling their money out of the banks. It's a fascinating case of government intervention that really gave people faith and in our capitalism and in our democracy in a way that really helped. And had he not done that, what would have really happened? That's the question, right? And so to me, there's a libertarian ideal that, the banks would have self-regulated. They would have, that people wouldn't have trusted the banks. They would have all collapsed. We would have gone, the tree in the forest would have died and fallen over, and then it would have been, food for the fungus. It would have been, food for the insects and housing for the insects, and then more trees would sprout up. And this is what subsidies do. This is what government intervention does. Is it props up the zombie companies.
Exactly. So maybe he, at that particular point in time, you prop things up, but now where we are, we're looking at potential financial ruin for our country.
I think it's short-term thinking versus long-term thinking.
Right.
I mean, I think, and this is why you get people, and I give it, one of the presentations I'm out there selling right now or giving for free currently is Bitcoin in El Salvador. And Kim, I want to invite you and Brad too. You guys can come with me. I'm going to El Salvador in October to see what's going on there. But Bitcoin is an argument of a new way to think about money and to keep it out of the hands of the government.
We are out of time. Kurt Gerwitz, great to have you.
Thanks.
And again, what's your website?
Just Google search my name, Kurt Gerwitz.
With a K. Brad Beck, always great to have you. And I so appreciate when you step up and guest host as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Appreciate you letting me be here.
Absolutely. And our quote for the end of the show is from Golda Meir. She said, "It isn't enough to believe in something. You have to have the stamina to meet obstacles and overcome them, to struggle." So my friends, today, be grateful, read great books, think good thoughts, listen to beautiful music, communicate and listen well, live honestly and authentically, strive for high ideals, and like Superman, stand for truth, justice, and the American way. My friends, you are not alone. God bless you, and God bless America.
Climbing, twisting, turning further from my home. Young, like a new moon rising, fierce through the rain and lightning, wandering out into this great unknown. And I don't want no one to cry, but tell them if I don't survive, I was born free. I was born free. I was born free.
The views and opinions expressed on KLZ 560 are those of the speaker, commentators, hosts, their guests, and callers. They are not necessarily the views and opinions of Crawford Broadcasting or KLZ management, employees, associates, or advertisers. KLZ 560 is a Crawford Broadcasting God and Country station.